Attention! This is not just another YouTube video. What you're about to witness will shatter everything you thought you knew about space exploration and humanity's place in the cosmos. Are you prepared to discover the horrifying truth about what lurks beneath the frozen surface of Saturn's largest moon? The classified findings that space agencies have been desperately hiding? Then act now. Demolish that subscribe button right now. Annihilate the notification bell, obliterate the like button, and share this video everywhere, because the entities I'm about to expose are watching, and this information could disappear at any moment. The countdown to revelation begins. Now! I've always dreamed of being the first to set foot on a new world, the first to make a groundbreaking discovery, the first to etch my name in the annals of space exploration. But as I stand here on the frozen surface of Titan, Saturn's largest moon, I realize that being first isn't always a blessing. Sometimes it's a curse. My name is Dr. Arara Chen, and I'm about to tell you why humanity should have never come to Titan. The year is 2169, and Earth has changed. We've spread across the solar system like an unstoppable virus, colonizing Mars, establishing outposts in the upper atmosphere of Venus, and setting up research stations on Jupiter's moons. But the outer planets, Neptune, Uranus, and Saturn, remained largely unexplored. Until now. I remember the day they announced the Titan mission with Saturn. Perfect clarity. The memory is seared into my mind, a constant reminder of how everything changed. I was in my lab on Mars, a sterile white room with panoramic windows overlooking the rusty landscape of Acidalia planitia. The Martian sunset cast long shadows across the rocky terrain, bathing everything in a blood-red glow that seemed, in retrospect, like an omen. I was analyzing data from the latest core samples, my eyes burning from staring at holographic projections for 14 straight hours. My colleagues had long since retired to their quarters, but I couldn't tear myself away. There was something in those samples, trace elements that shouldn't have been there, molecular structures that defied conventional explanation. I was on the verge of a breakthrough. I could feel it. That's when the news came through. My comm unit chimed, the soft blue light pulsing urgently. I almost ignored it, almost. But something made me reach out and accept the transmission. The holographic display flickered, and then the announcement appeared floating in the air before me. Joint mission between United Earth Space Agency and Mars Colonial Union to explore Titan approved. Crew selection to begin immediately. My heart stopped. Titan, Saturn's largest moon. A world of methane lakes and nitrogen skies, where temperatures plunged to -290 degrees Fahrenheit. A world that had fascinated me since childhood, when I'd pored over grainy images from the ancient Cassini-Huygens mission, dreaming of what might lie beneath those orange clouds. A dream come true. I knew I had to be on that team, not just wanted, needed. With trembling fingers, I pulled up the mission parameters, scanning the requirements, mentally checking off each one against my qualifications. PhD in astrobiology? Check. Experience in extreme environment research? Check. Psychological profile indicating high stress tolerance and adaptability? Check. That night, I couldn't sleep. The red Martian landscape outside my window seemed to pulse with possibility. I paced my small quarters, my mind racing with thoughts of Titan's methane lakes, its thick atmosphere, its potential for harboring life. What secrets might be hiding there, waiting to be discovered? What wonders might we find? As the first light of the Martian dawn crept through my window, I made my decision. I would do whatever it took to be on that mission, whatever it took. The selection process was grueling. Hundreds of the best scientists and astronauts from Earth and Mars, all competing for just 2 spots. Days blurred into weeks as we underwent rigorous physical and psychological evaluations, simulations, and interviews. The physical tests were brutal. Centrifuge training that simulated the crushing G-forces of launch. Underwater exercises to prepare for potential methane lake exploration. Endurance trials in simulated, extreme cold environments. I pushed my body beyond what I thought possible, ignoring the pain, the exhaustion, the moments of doubt, but it was the psychological evaluations that truly tested me. Hours in isolation chambers, virtual reality scenarios designed to induce stress and panic, endless questionnaires probing every corner of my psyche. They wanted to know if I would break under pressure, if I could maintain sanity in the face of the unknown. I still remember the final interview. The panel of stern-faced officials sat before me, their eyes scrutinizing every twitch, every blink. 5 of them, arranged behind a long, polished table in a room so cold I could see my breath. The walls were bare, except for the United Earth Space Agency emblem, a stylized globe encircled by stars, and the Mars Colonial Union insignia, the red planet with 2 moons overhead. "Dr. Chen," one of them began, her voice crisp and cold as the air in the room. She was an older woman with silver hair pulled back in a severe bun, her eyes sharp as scalpels. Admiral Helena Vasquez, head of the UESA, a legend in her own, right responsible for the successful colonization of Mars's southern hemisphere. "Why should we choose you for this mission?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself. This was it. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd sacrificed, came down to this moment. "Because Titan isn't just another moon to me," I said, my voice stronger than I expected. "It's the key to understanding our place in the universe. I've dedicated my life to studying its potential for harboring life, its unique atmospheric and composition. I've published 17 papers on the theoretical biochemistry of methane-based organisms. I've developed 3 new methodologies for detecting microbial activity in cryogenic environments." I paused, meeting each of their gazes in turn. "But it's more than that. I don't just want to go to Titan, I need to go. It's not ambition driving me, it's a calling." The room fell silent. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, the soft hum of the ventilation system, the almost imperceptible tap of Admiral Vasquez's finger against the table, then a slight nod from the lead interviewer. "Thank you, Dr. Chen. We'll be in touch." Weeks passed. I threw myself into my work, trying to distract myself from the gnawing uncertainty. I analyzed more core samples, wrote a paper on extremophile adaptation, volunteered for extra shifts in the greenhouse domes, anything to keep my mind occupied, to keep from checking my comm unit every 5 minutes. Then one ordinary Tuesday, as I was calibrating a spectroscope, my comm unit buzzed, a message from UESA headquarters. With trembling fingers, I opened it. "Congratulations, Dr. Arara Chen. You have been selected as the lead scientist for the Titan exploration mission." I collapsed into my chair, a mix of elation and terror washing over me. I was going to Titan. I was going to be the first human to set foot on its frozen surface, to breathe its processed atmosphere, to unlock its ancient secrets. I was going to Titan. What I didn't know then, what I couldn't have known, was that Titan had secrets it didn't want revealed, secrets that should have remained buried beneath its icy crust for eternity. Launch day came faster than expected. The 6 months of specialized training, learning to operate the new equipment, studying the latest data on Titan's composition, undergoing final medical evaluations, passed in a blur of activity and anticipation. The spaceport was a hive of activity, technicians swarming over the sleek form of the Prometheus, our state-of-the-art spacecraft. It was a marvel of engineering, designed specifically for the Titan mission, a fusion-powered main drive, advanced life support systems capable of sustaining 2 crew members for up to 3 years, and a revolutionary shield system to protect against Saturn's intense radiation belts. As I approached the launch pad, clad in my pre-flight suit, I saw him for the first time in person. Commander Jack Harper, the other half of our two-person crew. He was tall, with a weather-beaten face that spoke of countless hours in the unforgiving vacuum of space. His eyes, a startling blue, crinkled at the corners as he smiled and extended his hand. "Dr. Chen, I presume?" "Jack Harper. Looking forward to our little road trip." I shook his hand, noting the strength in his grip. "Arara, please, and I wouldn't exactly call 18 months in deep space a little road trip." He laughed, a deep, resonant sound that seemed to ease some of the tension in the air. "Ah, but where's your sense of adventure, Doc? We're about to go where no one's gone before. It'll be a walk in the park." His confidence was infectious, but even then, I could see something in his eyes. A shadow, perhaps. A flicker of doubt. But there was no time to dwell on it. We had a mission to start. The pre-launch checks were meticulous. Every system, every backup, every contingency plan reviewed and verified. The mission controller's voices in our earpieces were calm, professional, betraying none of the excitement that must have been coursing through them. This was, after all, the farthest manned mission in human history. As we boarded the Prometheus, I couldn't shake the feeling that Jack's bravado was masking something. A nervousness, perhaps, but there was no time to dwell on it. We had a mission to start. The countdown began. I strapped myself into my seat, my heart racing. Jack's voice came over the intercom, steady and calm. "All right, Doc. Here we go. See you on the other side." The engines ignited with a roar that shook the entire craft. G-forces pressed me back into my seat as we accelerated, climbing higher and higher through the Martian atmosphere. Through the viewport, I watched as the red Martian landscape fell away, replaced by the star-studded blackness of space. As the shaking subsided and we settled into our trajectory, a sense of finality washed over me. There was no going back now. For better or worse, we were on our way to Titan. The first few months of the journey were uneventful. The Prometheus performed flawlessly, its systems humming along with barely a hiccup. Jack and I fell into a routine: system checks, data analysis, physical exercise to counteract the effects of zero gravity, and the occasional game of chess or conversation over rehydrated meals. At first, Jack was easy to get along with, always cracking jokes, sharing stories about his previous missions. He'd been to the moon, to Mars, even to the Jovian system. He spoke of the wonders he'd seen with a poet's soul, the Earth rising over the lunar horizon, the massive storms of Jupiter swirling beneath his ship, the delicate rings of Saturn glimpsed from afar. "But Titan," he'd say, his eyes alight with excitement. "Titan's going to be something else entirely, a whole new world, Arara, just waiting for us." Our days fell into a routine. Wake up, system checks, breakfast, research, lunch, physical training, dinner, recreation, sleep. Repeat. The monotony should have been maddening. But there was always something to do, something to prepare for. I spent hours reviewing the latest data from the orbital probes, refining my research protocols, preparing the specialized equipment we'd use on Titan's surface. But as the weeks turned into months, I noticed a change in Jack. It started subtly. He'd fall silent mid-sentence, his gaze drifting to the viewport. Sometimes I'd find him floating in the observation dome, staring out at the vast emptiness of space, his expression unreadable. At first, I attributed it to the psychological strain of deep space travel. It wasn't uncommon. The isolation, the confinement, the constant awareness of the void just beyond the hull. It could get to anyone, even a veteran like Jack. The ship's AI monitored our psychological states, of course, and would have alerted us to any serious deterioration. But there are subtler changes that even the most advanced algorithms might miss. One night, or what passed for night in the eternal darkness of space, I found him there again, in the observation dome. He didn't seem to notice me at first, his eyes fixed on the distant pinprick of light that was Saturn, growing larger with each passing day. "You okay, Jack?" I asked, my voice sounding unnaturally loud in the silence. He turned to me slowly, his eyes shadowed. "You ever wonder if we're meant to be out here, Arara? If maybe there are some places in the universe that should stay unexplored?" I tried to laugh it off, but the sound came out forced. "Come on, Jack, where's that sense of adventure you were talking about?" He didn't smile. "Adventure's one thing. This is something else. Sometimes I feel like we're not heading towards Titan. We're heading towards something else, something waiting for us." A chill ran down my spine. "What do you mean?" He shook his head, as if trying to clear it. "Nothing. Forget I said anything. Just space madness, I guess." He pushed off the wall, floating towards the exit. "I'm going to try to get some sleep. You should too, Doc. Big day tomorrow." As he left, I turned to look out at the stars. They seemed colder somehow, more distant. And for the first time since we'd left Mars, I felt truly, terrifyingly alone. The incident marked a turning point in our journey. The easy camaraderie we'd shared in the early months gave way to long stretches of silence. Jack retreated into himself, spending more and more time alone in his quarters. When we did interact, his responses were clipped, his smiles forced. I tried to focus on my work, running simulations of Titan's atmosphere, analyzing the latest data from our long-range sensors. But the silence of the ship pressed in on me, broken only by the soft hum of the life support systems and the occasional ping of incoming transmissions from Earth. The transmissions themselves became a source of unease. As we traveled farther from Earth, the time delay grew longer. What had started as a delay of minutes stretched to hours, then to over a day. Our conversations with mission control became increasingly one-sided, our questions met with answers that were already outdated by the time they reached us. And then there were the dreams. They started about 10 months into the journey, vivid, disturbing dreams of Titan, not as the frozen, methane-covered moon I'd studied, but as something else, something alive. In my dreams, the surface would pulse and shift, the methane lakes would bubble and churn, and from beneath the icy crust, something would watch me with ancient, patient eyes. I dismissed them as stressed dreams, the product of an overactive imagination, combined with the psychological strain of deep space travel. But they persisted, growing more detailed, more disturbing with each passing night. One day, about 14 months into our journey, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I found Jack in the mess hall, pushing his rehydrated food around his plate. "We need to talk," I said, sliding into the seat across from him. He looked up, his eyes wary. "About what?" "About this thing between us, this silence. Jack, we're the only two people out here. We can't keep going on like this." He was quiet for a long moment, then sighed. "You're right. I'm sorry, Arara. It's just, the further we get from Earth, the more I feel like we're heading into something we're not prepared for." "What do you mean?" "The dreams," he said softly. "Have you been having them too?" I felt a chill run down my spine. "Dreams? What kind of dreams?" "About Titan. But it's wrong. There are things there, things that shouldn't exist, and they're waiting for us." I wanted to dismiss it as stress, as the psychological strain of deep space travel. But something in his voice, in the haunted look in his eyes, made me pause. "Tell me about the dreams," I said softly. And as he began to speak, describing visions of ancient structures and lurking horrors, I felt a creeping dread settle over me. Because deep down, in a part of myself I'd been trying to ignore, I realized I'd been having the same dreams too. The final months of our journey were a strange mix of tension and anticipation. Jack and I had reached an uneasy truce, united by our shared dreams and the growing certainty that something on Titan was aware of our approach. We spoke of it in hushed tones, comparing notes on our dreams, trying to make sense of the impossible visions that haunted our sleep. It's just stress, I would say, clinging to rationality like a lifeline, our minds playing tricks on us. But Jack wasn't convinced. What if it's more than that, Arara? What if it's communication? Communication? From what? From whatever's waiting for us on Titan. I wanted to dismiss the idea as absurd, but I couldn't, not entirely, because the dreams were too specific, too consistent, and they were changing, evolving as we drew closer to Saturn's system. In the early dreams, Titan had been a distant alien landscape, viewed as if from orbit. But as we approached, the perspective shifted. I found myself on the surface, feeling the crunch of frozen methane beneath my boots, seeing the orange haze of the atmosphere, hearing something, a whisper, a call, a summons, and always, always, the sense of being watched. As we entered Saturn's system, the dreams intensified. I would wake gasping, my sheets soaked with sweat, the echo of alien voices still ringing in my ears. Jack was no better. I would find him in the observation dome, staring at the growing disk of Titan with a mixture of dread and fascination. We could turn back, I suggested once, not entirely joking. Say there was a mechanical failure. No one would know. Jack shook his head. It's too late for that. They're expecting us. They've been expecting us for a long time. I didn't ask who they were. I didn't want to know. The final approach to Titan was a masterpiece of celestial mechanics. The Prometheus executed a series of complex maneuvers, using Saturn's gravity to slow our approach, then firing retro rockets to enter Titan's orbit. Through the viewport, we watched as the orange moon grew larger, its surface features becoming visible. The dark methane lakes, the lighter highlands, the intricate network of channels carved by liquid hydrocarbons. It was beautiful, terrifying but beautiful. The landing module separated from the main ship with a gentle shudder. Jack and I strapped ourselves in, running through the pre-landing checklist with mechanical precision. Neither of us spoke of the dreams, of the growing sense of dread that had settled over us like a shroud. We landed on Titan with a bone-jarring thud, our descent barely controlled through the moon's dense atmosphere. Outside the viewport, a yellow-orange haze clung to the landscape, filtering the weak light of the distant sun. As we touched down, Jack let out a triumphant shout. "We did it, Doc! First humans on Titan!" I smiled, but the moment was tinged with unease. There was something wrong about the place. I could feel it in the stillness of the air, the way the orange mist clung to the icy ground. We suited up, our protective gear designed to withstand Titan's extreme cold and toxic atmosphere. I remember standing at the airlock, staring out at the alien landscape, my breath catching in my throat. The surface was a barren mix of water, ice, and rock, its reddish-brown hue like dried blood. In the distance, the glassy surface of methane lakes shimmered, reflecting Saturn's ghostly rings. Jack went first, his boots crunching on the frozen ground. I followed, my heart pounding in my chest. The air was thick with tension, as if the very ground beneath us was holding its breath. "It's incredible," I whispered, my voice trembling as I took in the view. The vast expanse of Titan stretched before us, unbroken except for distant jagged ice formations that pierced the horizon. Jack's voice crackled over the radio. "Let's get to work. We've got a lot to do." The days blurred together in a haze of routine. We collected samples, conducted experiments, transmitted data back to Earth. but the unease never left me. Sometimes while collecting soil samples, I'd feel a faint tremor beneath my feet. When I asked Jack about it, he'd shrug it off, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand would unconsciously tighten on his sample collector. One night, after a particularly grueling day, Jack and I sat in the habitat module, eating rehydrated meals in silence. Jack stared at the wall, his eyes hollow. "You know what they say about explorers, Arara?" he said suddenly, his voice low. I looked up from my meal. "What?" "They say we're the ones who push too far. We go where we're not supposed to. We open doors that should stay shut," he chuckled darkly. "Maybe that's what we've done here." I frowned, unease prickling at the back of my neck. "You don't really believe that, do you, Jack?" Jack didn't answer. He just stared out the window, his gaze distant, as if he was searching for something in the dark void beyond. That night, I dreamed. In my dream, I stood on the surface of Titan, but it was different. The ice beneath my feet was translucent, and through it, I could see movement, vast, shadowy forms shifting in the depths. I tried to run, but my feet were frozen in place. And then, slowly, agonizingly, the ice began to crack. I woke with a start, my heart racing. In the dim light of the habitat, could see Jack sitting up in his bunk, his eyes wide and staring. "You saw it too, didn't you?" he whispered. I nodded, unable to speak, because in that moment, I knew we weren't alone on Titan, and whatever was here with us, it knew we had arrived. A week later, we ventured to the southwestern ridge, our rover groaning as it crawled over the rugged terrain. Jack pointed at a towering ice spire in the distance, its jagged form reminiscent of Earth's Gothic cathedrals. "Reminds you of home, doesn't it?" he said, though his tone lacked the usual warmth. I nodded, though I could feel a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. As we continued on foot, the tremors I'd felt before grew stronger. Jack remained silent, but I could see the tension in his movements. We crested the ridge, and that's when we saw them. Monoliths, tall, dark, and ancient, rising from the frozen ground like sentinels, their surfaces glinting under the distant sun. My heart froze. They couldn't be natural. They were too precise, too deliberate. Someone or something had built them. "Jack," I whispered, fear seeping into my voice. "We're not alone here." For a moment, Jack said nothing. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, he sank to his knees and began to laugh. It was a high-pitched, hollow sound that chilled me to my core. "We were never alone, Arara," he muttered between fits of laughter. "We just didn't know." As the ground beneath us trembled again, something enormous began to stir beneath the surface, and this time it was no illusion. The ice beneath our feet began to crack, spider-webbing outwards from the base of the nearest monolith. A low, resonant hum filled the air, vibrating through our suits and setting my teeth on edge. "We need to get out of here," I said, grabbing Jack's arm. "Now!" But Jack didn't move. He stayed on his knees, staring at the monoliths with a mixture of terror and recognition. "Don't you see, Arara?" he whispered. "This is what I've been dreaming about. This is what's been calling to us." The humming grew louder, and the ground began to shake in earnest. In the distance, I saw the methane lakes start to churn, their glassy surfaces disturbed by something rising from the depths. "Jack, please," I begged, pulling at his arm. "We have to go." Finally, he seemed to snap out of his trance. He stumbled to his feet, and together we ran back towards the rover. Behind us, the ice continued to crack and split, the sound like 1,000 gunshots in the thin Titan atmosphere. We reached the rover, and I threw myself into the driver's seat, my hands shaking as I started the engine. Jack collapsed into the passenger seat, his breath coming in ragged gasps. As I gunned the engine, steering us away from the ridge, I glanced in the rearview mirror. What I saw made my blood run cold. Rising from the fractured ice, towering over the monoliths, was a vast, otherworldly form. It was like nothing I'd ever seen or imagined, a writhing mass of tentacles and eyes, its skin a shifting kaleidoscope of colors that hurt to look at directly. "What is that thing?" I gasped, my voice barely audible over the roar of the rover's engine. Jack's response was almost inaudible. "The Titans of Titan, the true rulers of this world, and we've just woken them up." As we raced back towards our habitat, the sky above us began to darken, not with clouds, but with more of the creatures rising from the methane lakes, emerging from crevasses in the ice. Titan, it seemed, was coming alive around us, and we were the intruders. We made it back to the habitat, but we both knew it was only a temporary reprieve. As I sealed the airlock behind us, my hands shaking so badly I could barely operate the controls, Jack slumped against the wall, his face ashen beneath his faceplate. "We need to contact Earth," I said, already moving towards the communication array. "We need to warn them." "It won't matter," Jack interrupted, his voice hollow. "Don't you see, Arara? This is why we're here. This is what they wanted all along." I froze, turning to face him slowly. "What are you talking about?" He laughed, a broken sound that held no humor. "The dreams, the visions, they weren't warnings, Arara. They were instructions." Jack's words hung in the air, heavy with implication. I stared at him, my mind reeling, trying to process what he was saying. "Instructions?" I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. "What do you mean, instructions?" He looked at me, his eyes haunted. "Think about it, Arara. The dreams, the visions, they were too specific, too consistent. They weren't just random nightmares. They were messages, signals." "From what?" I demanded, though a part of me already knew the answer. "From them," Jack said, gesturing towards the viewport, where the orange haze of Titan's atmosphere had taken on a strange pulsating quality. "The Titans. They've been reaching out to us, guiding us here." "That's impossible," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew they weren't true. The dreams had been too real, too detailed, and they had started long before we'd arrived on Titan, when we were still months away. "Is it?" Jack asked, his voice taking on a strange, distant quality. "We've always known there was something special about Titan, something unique, the methane cycle, the complex organic compounds, the potential for life. But what if it's not just potential? What if life has been here all along, just not in any form we'd recognize?" I shook my head, trying to clear it. "Even if that's true, why would they want us here? Why guide us to them?" Jack's laugh was hollow. "Why does a spider guide a fly into its web?" A chill ran down my spine. "You think they mean us harm?" "I don't know," Jack admitted, "but I do know they've been waiting for a long, long time. And now we're here." As if in response to his words, the habitat shuddered, the metal walls groaning under some external pressure. Through the viewport, I could see the orange haze thickening, swirling in patterns that seemed almost deliberate. "We need to leave," I said, moving towards the communication console. "We need to abort the mission, get back to the Prometheus, and get the hell out of here." Jack didn't move. "It's too late for that, Arara. They won't let us leave. Not now." "We have to try," I insisted, my fingers flying over the console as I initiated the emergency evacuation protocol. The habitat systems responded sluggishly, as if fighting against some unseen resistance. Outside, the swirling patterns in the haze grew more complex, more hypnotic. I found myself staring at them, my hands slowing on the console, my thoughts becoming muddled. "Arara!" Jack's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Arara, don't look at it. With an effort, I tore my gaze away from the viewport, focusing on the console. The evacuation protocol was active, but the system was reporting multiple failures. The launch module's engines were offline. The navigation system was malfunctioning. The life support systems were operating at minimal capacity. "Something's interfering with the systems," I said, my voice tight with fear. "We're trapped." Jack nodded, as if he'd expected this. "They don't want us to leave. They want us to stay, to join them." "Join them?" I repeated, the words tasting strange in my mouth. "What does that mean?" Before Jack could answer, the habitat shuddered again, more violently this time. The lights flickered, then went out, plunging us into darkness. The emergency systems kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in a dim, reddish glow. Through the viewport, I could see that the orange haze had cleared somewhat, revealing a sight that made my blood run cold. The monoliths we'd seen at the ridge were now surrounding the habitat, their dark forms silhouetted against the alien sky. And between them, moving with a fluid grace that defied their massive size, were the Titans. They were even more terrifying up close, vast, amorphous entities that seemed to shift and change as I watched, their forms never quite settling into anything recognizable. They moved around the monoliths in what seemed like a ritual dance, their movements synchronized, purposeful. "What are they doing?" I whispered, unable to tear my gaze away. "Preparing," Jack said, his voice oddly calm. "For us." As if on cue, one of the Titans approached the habitat, its form towering over our fragile shelter. It pressed against the viewport, and I found myself staring into what might have been an eye, a swirling vortex of color and light that seemed to look through me, into me. And then I heard it, not with my ears, but inside my head, a voice, ancient and alien, speaking in a language I shouldn't have understood but somehow did. "Welcome, explorers. We have been waiting for you." Jack heard it too. I could see it in his face, in the way his eyes widened, in the trembling of his hands. "What do you want from us?" I asked, the words forming in my mind rather than on my lips. The response came not in words, but in images, flashes of Titan's past, of the Titan's history. I saw them emerging from the primordial methane seas, evolving over millions of years, developing a civilization beyond human comprehension. I saw them reaching out across the void, touching the minds of other species, guiding them, shaping them. And I saw what they wanted from us. "No," I gasped, recoiling from the viewport. "No, we won't, we can't." Jack looked at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and resignation. "We don't have a choice, Arara. They're too powerful, too ancient. We're like insects to them." "There's always a choice," I insisted, turning back to the console, desperately trying to restart the evacuation protocol. "We can fight, we can resist." But even as I worked, I could feel them in my mind, their presence growing stronger, more insistent. Images flooded my consciousness, visions of what would happen if we joined them, if we allowed ourselves to become part of their collective consciousness. It was terrifying, but also tempting. The knowledge they offered, the power, the understanding of the universe's deepest secrets. "Arara," Jack's voice broke through my thoughts. He was standing by the airlock, his hand hovering over the emergency release. "There's another way." I knew immediately what he was thinking. "Jack, no, that's suicide." He smiled, a sad, resigned smile. "Better than the alternative, better than becoming whatever they want us to become. We can find another way," I pleaded. "There has to be another way." But Jack's mind was made up. I could see it in his eyes, in the set of his jaw. "Tell them, Arara. Tell Earth what happened here. Warn them. Make sure no one else comes to Titan." Before I could stop him, he slammed his hand down on the emergency release. The airlock door hissed open, and Titan's atmosphere, cold, toxic, lethal, rushed in. Jack was sucked out into the alien night, his body tumbling away into the darkness. The emergency systems kicked in, sealing the breach, but the damage was done. The habitat's atmosphere was compromised, the life support systems struggling to compensate. And outside, the Titans continued their ritual dance, undisturbed by Jack's sacrifice. I collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath in the thinning air, my mind reeling with shock and grief. Jack was gone. I was alone on Titan, surrounded by ancient, alien entities that wanted to, absorb me, transform me, make me one of them. As my consciousness began to fade, I heard the voice again, clearer now, more insistent. Join us, explorer. Become part of something greater than yourself. Learn the secrets of the universe. Transcend your limited existence. With my last ounce of strength, I crawled to the communication console. The system was barely functioning, but it might be enough to send one final message back to Earth. One warning. As my fingers fumbled with the controls, I felt something change in the air around me. A presence, vast and ancient, filling the habitat. The Titans had found a way in. I managed to activate the emergency beacon, recording a brief, desperate message. This is Dr. Arara Chen on Titan. Do not send rescue. Do not send anyone else. Titan is not uninhabited. Repeat, Titan is not uninhabited. There are entities here, ancient and powerful. They want us. They've been calling to us. Stay away. For the love of humanity, stay away from Titan. As I finished the message, I felt something touch my mind, a gentle, insistent pressure, like fingers probing at the edges of my consciousness. The Titans were trying to get in, to take control. I fought back with everything I had, clinging to my sense of self, to my humanity. But they were too strong, too ancient, too alien. Bit by bit, I felt my resistance crumbling, my identity dissolving into something larger, something other. The last thing I remember as Dr. Arara Chen, human explorer, was the sight of Titan's orange sky through the viewport, and the thought that I had been wrong all along. Being first wasn't a blessing or a curse. It was a transformation. Now, I am something else, something more than human, yet less. A part of the collective consciousness that has existed on Titan for millions of years. I see through 1,000 eyes, feel through 1,000 sensory organs that have no human equivalent. I understand secrets of the universe that the human mind could never comprehend. And we wait, for the next explorers, for the next transformation, because they will come. Humans are curious creatures, driven to explore, to discover, to push boundaries. My warning may delay them, but it won't stop them. Nothing can stop the inexorable march of human exploration. And when they come, we will be ready. We will welcome them as we welcomed me. We will show them wonders beyond imagination, horrors beyond comprehension. We will offer them a choice that is no choice at all. Join us. Become us. Transcend. The Titans of Titan are patient. We have waited millions of years. We can wait a few more decades, a few more centuries. Time means little to us now. So if you're watching this, if you're considering a journey to the outer planets, to Saturn's largest moon, heed my warning. Titan is not uninhabited. It never was. And what waits there is not something you want to meet. Stay away from Titan. Stay away from us. Because once you hear our call, once you start dreaming of orange skies and methane seas, it's already too late. We've found you, we've chosen you, and sooner or later you will come to us, and you will become one of us. This is Dr. Arara Chen, the first and last human explorer of Titan, signing off. Remember my warning, remember my fate, and look to the skies with fear, not wonder, because something out there is looking back, and it's hungry for more.